Hello, we're reading from Always Outnumbered, Always Outgunned, one of my favorite books by one of my favorite authors. I don't read a lot of fiction, but when I do, I read Walter Mosley. Um, Put on to me really by my mother-in-law. Really, really um, good author. Serious thinker too. Writes good fiction and nonfiction. Socrates stared at the door a long time after the boy was gone. For hours, the night came on, the cool desert air of Los Angeles came in under the door and through the cracks in his small shack of an apartment. A cricket was calling out for love from somewhere in the wall. Socrates looked at a woman, sun shining on her head. Her red sun hat threw a hot crimson shadow across her face. There was no respite from her, but she still stood defiant. He tried to remember what Teresa looked like, but it had been too long now. All he had left was the picture of a painting, and that wasn't even her. All he had left from her were the words she never said. You are dead to me, Socrates. Dead as that poor boy and that poor girl you killed. He wondered if Darrow would ever come back. He hoped so. Socrates went through the doorless doorway into his other room. He lay down on the couch, and just before he was asleep, he thought of how he'd wake up alone. The rooster was hoarse in his old age, his crow no more than a whisper. But at least that motherfucker tried. Midnight meeting. I think we should go over there right now and shoot him in the head, Wright said. He held up his paralyzed left hand and gestured meaninglessly with an atrophied knuckle of his pointed finger. We can't do that, man, Markham Pill whined. He grabbed at the collar of his t-shirt and pulled it until it stretched down far enough to reveal his weak, yellow-hued chest. Wright, Burke, and Stoney Weil were sitting on the floor with their backs against the wall, and Socrates fought Law's small living room. Howard Shakur and Markham perched themselves on the couch and doubled for Socrates' bed, or their doubles for Socrates' bed. It was a poor man's room. The wallpaper had been pink at one time, but now was worn down to shopping bag brown. The wood slats on the floor had buckled in places and separated. A tall man would have brushed the ceiling with the top of his head. On a windy day, even the open-faced gas heater couldn't keep it warm. There were no windows. Socrates' only neighbors were two burned-out furniture stores and an almost always empty street. The first year Socrates lived there, he sent the rent to H. Price Landers, Esquire, who received his mail at an address on Olympic Boulevard. Somewhere in the second year, the money orders started coming back marked "Return to Sender," no forwarding address. H. Price Landers had died, Socrates thought, and all that he owned was at least for a while forgotten. We ain't even sure that he did it right, Stoney Weil, the squat ship welder from East St. Louis, said. It's just hearsay. We going on. No, no. No-Neck Howard shook his head. He was both the heaviest and the youngest man in the room. My little girl ain't lying. She seen what I told you. She saw Pettis jump up on Leroy with a knife. She told me that even before they found him, if she saw Leroy get it, then you know she seen who give it to him. She could be wrong, Stoney replied. It was nighttime. It was late. Lots of men, the same build as Pettis. She knew it was Leroy. She knew he was dead. How's she gonna mark one man and then miss the other? It could happen, Stoney said. Well, if she saw it, then let her go tell the cops. Cops the ones should take down a man if he did wrong. Ain't us who should do it. Markham was wringing his t-shirt Sweat formed on his forehead, but it wasn't hot in the room. I ain't sending my baby down to no cops. Uh-uh, Howard said. He swiveled his big head around on his shoulders and opened his eyes wide. From somewhere, blocks away, four shots were fired in quick succession. The men all looked at the pinkish brown wallpaper for a moment and then turned their attention back to the room. What you say, Sacco? Stoney asked. Their host was standing in the doorless doorway that led from the living room to the kitchen. He was listening to his friends and neighbors, but somehow felt removed. Their talk about Pettis and his crime had brought back memories of another man back in the Indiana jail. Socrates, yeah, what you think about this shit here? Socrates squinted, then he rubbed his eyes with his big hands. He looked at Howard, and Howard didn't have much of a neck, but he was so fat that he had three chins to make up for it. And so here we see what I think we're gonna see if the ruling class of this country doesn't do something like a UBI or release some of the resources, some of the money, so that we can have low income housing and or turn their head while people squat. You're gonna have to do something like that, or else you're gonna have violence in neighborhoods. Remember, we're anti-police now, so police aren't going to do any work if you have any police at all. And so neighborhoods, communities are going to have to police themselves, and they're going to have to deal with violence like this. So it's interesting to see what will happen. And this book deals with that. People forget that the black neighborhood was once like that. I thank you for your support. Until later, please take care of your mind, take care of your body, and be safe.